So when you think about disasters, some of these images may be the things that jump to mind, whether it's fire, earthquake, blizzard, or a flood. Any one of those, or a combination certainly, can cause significant problems for a business. It's critical to understand that a disaster recovery plan is employed not just with the loss of information. That's the kind of thing where a backup could help you out. No, this is more than that. It's dealing with the loss of information and quite likely the loss of your ability to produce information or process or conduct transactions. It's far more severe. Consider it a worst case scenario. And as I can remember from elementary school, one thing you do is you practice a fire drill, right? You do that in school, you try to do that at home, figure out where do you go in case of a fire. It's one of those things you hope you never need to actually do. I will share you a quick personal experience. I know there are people who probably would admit to pulling a fire alarm and not in the good way. I actually did have the chance to pull my school's fire alarm once because, by golly, there was an actual fire. And so we got, I can say I evacuated a building of 1,000 people. Not exactly a highlight of my life, but in any case, it's one of those things. At least I knew what to do and where to go. And on that occasion, we did need to use it. And believe me, companies have had to employ their disaster recovery plans. They never want to, but it's good to know they're there and they work. Now, why is that? Beyond the obvious to say, well, certainly we want to make sure we can get the business back on its feet. Well, a well-conceived disaster recovery plan must consider all the potential negative effects. You really have to look at this as, when the worst case happens, just how bad is it going to be? For example, what's the cost of continuing without our data? How long can we function without it? Let's say I don't have access to my customer database, my sales register, or other information. How long can I go without that data? A week? A month? A day? Depends on the business, depends on the entity. A bank would tell you not very long at all. The New York Stock Exchange would probably say we could probably go that way for about 30 seconds without having major issues. Second, what's the cost of getting the data back? Can we restore it? Could we recreate it if that's the only option we had? And what's that going to cost us? What else are we going to be spending to diagnose and fix the issues we face? And we have to acknowledge, no matter how good or how happy our suppliers or customers may be, there are limits to their patience, and they may not all bear with us through the crisis. So what happens if we deal with that? How much business are we likely to lose? What kind of supplier relationships might be disrupted? So it's important to understand, although you say, hey, I hope I never use it, you don't want to be caught without one when you do need it, because the cost can be tremendous, crippling, or perhaps can actually bring the company to closure. So there are 5 steps in a disaster recovery plan, or perhaps I should say an effective disaster recovery plan. First off, you have to assess the risks. What is it that could go wrong? How likely is it? What's the impact? Second, identify what are so-called mission-critical applications and data. What are the most valuable things that we could lose as a result, that we would need back the quickest? Third, how are we going to deal with those mission-critical applications? What's our plan? Fourth, it's great to say, you're right, those are the 5 things we need to make sure we get back quickly. You don't want people scrambling going, well, whose job is that when the crisis hits? So you want to make sure you delineate clear lines of responsibility. Who's going to be handling this? I explain this to my classes saying, let's say the disaster hits and everyone's at their home when it happens. The disaster recovery plan is to put into place, but there's no way for the various employees to communicate with each other. Only if the disaster recovery plan in advance has said, Bob is responsible for A, Sue is responsible for B, Jim is responsible for C, they don't need to talk to each other. They all know, okay, the plan's been put into action. I know what I need to do. If it's been properly planned in advance, everybody's doing their job and the plan will be accomplished. But number 5 is the one that's easiest to overlook, but is so important, and that's to test it. Support and test the recovery plan. You do not want to find out the disaster recovery plan had a major flaw when you actually tried to put it into action. The only way to know that for sure is to put it to the test before you actually need it.